Hey everybody, it's me, DaynaLN Knuckles, the People's Oracle. I'm here with your reading for the new moon in sidereal Libra, which takes place November 4th, 2021. As always, I like to start with the 2021 sidereal astrology guide, which is our calendar, our journal, our workbook that walks us through 1 year of astrology personal to your chart. And part of that, my favorite part of that, is the fill in the blanks in the back, which help us to apply individual astrological events to our life and birth chart. So for the new moon in Libra, I have written here, planting seeds that impose the consensus. Now, before I go down this whole road, remember a couple weeks ago, I did a reading for the full moon in sidereal Aries, and I talked about how the moment was full of potential, full of meaning, full of ways that we were setting the stage for important events that are coming, particularly beginning spring 2022. So here we are at this new moon in Libra, and I feel like there's really a momentum going on here, and I'm going to explain why. Planting seeds that impose the consensus. I think there's three pieces here. We're planting seeds, which is what we do at a new moon. When we plant seeds, we are digging deep into the dark earth, and we are putting a seed down in there, and we tend to it and hope that it grows into something meaningful and healthy that bears fruit or provides shade. But the important piece is that inside that seed, you cannot see what it's going to grow into. I mean, there's nothing about an acorn that says, ah, yes, this is going to be an oak tree. This is going to be a tree. The potential is so deep down inside of there, and it requires a huge amount of energy, consistency, an effort to pull out of that seed the full potential of what it could be. Our vision may be short, meaning that short-sightedness, that way that we can have our nose to the grindstone and be so focused on the here and now that we don't see that it's a part of something larger. And I think it's meaningful and helpful to know when something is a part of something larger, to put it in proper perspective in terms of our life and our experiences and stories that we've been living with for a while. So the next part of this is that we are imposing something. Imposing is to force sometimes, but it is also a way that one group of people, person, or thing exercises power over something else. To impose my will, to impose my ideas, to impose my force or my strength. But here, we are imposing the consensus. And consensus, as I think I talked about this in the reading for the full moon in sidereal Aries a couple weeks ago, the consensus is what we agree reality is. It's when we come together and we gather and we share our ideas and our different viewpoints, and ideally we create a accurate and a meaningful way to move forward that reflects the people involved. So to impose the consensus is saying that, hey, we got to come to some type of agreement about how we're going to move forward here, right? We have to, in some way, figure out how we can bridge the gap between differing wills, differing perspectives, differing skill sets. How can we bring it all together in order to actually remain in community and relationship to move forward? Sometimes we're called to sever. Sometimes there is no way to move forward. Sometimes our experiences, our ideas, our beliefs, our wills are so divergent and sometimes antagonistic that we cannot move forward. But one thing that's so important that is happening at this new moon in sidereal Libra this month, November 2021, is that Venus is freshly in sidereal Sagittarius, and she ain't leaving until the end of February 2022. Why is that? What's going to happen is Venus is going to be traipsing through Sagittarius relatively slow. So Venus entered Sagittarius, what was that, October 31st? And it's not going to get to Capricorn until December, where is this? December 19th. Now, mind you, Venus, when it's really moving fast, can spend just about 4 weeks in a sign. But here we've got about, oh God, about 10 weeks just to get to the point where it's going to station retrograde, which it will do in early Capricorn, about 2 degrees. And that's not even until January 2022. And then it's going to quickly go back into Sagittarius, where it will remain until the end of February. If you have your 2021 sidereal astrology guide, you'll know in the back that the fill in the blank for Venus in sidereal Sagittarius is making connections with intention. This is such a, I want to say we are going back in time in some ways. 2017. 2018, these were times where Libra and Sagittarius were really active. So for many of you, you may have noticed that the entire month of October, even up until now in early November, has felt like you were revisiting people, circumstances, relationships, and things that might have happened to you from 2018. Let me know. Did October 2021 give you some kind of deja vu about 2018? Were there stories or relationships or ideas that took root or things that happened to you that seemed to resurface out of nowhere in 2018? I'm sorry, that seemed to resurface during the month of October. What was that like for you? Who were you then? Who are you now? And how have you changed? How are you different? So we're making connections with intention at this new moon in sidereal Libra. And one of the things we have to understand about sidereal Sagittarius is this is about belief and intention. This is about conviction. This is about your political ideals, your moral ideals, but even more so, this is about the story that you bring to relationships. So how are you becoming aware of the story that you bring to relationships and the ways that that might inhibit or prohibit you from actually relating to the person in front of you? I always say, are you in a relationship with the mannequin or are you in a relationship with the person in front of you? And oftentimes we really don't know that we're not seeing the person in front of us clearly because our stories about relationships and people and attachment and connection are keeping us from being able to see clearly. So one of the gifts that is available to us at this new moon in sidereal Libra is the opportunity to see clearly and to begin to unpack and dismantle the stories that you bring to relationship. And as you unpack these stories, how are you moving into consensus? How are you coming into agreement about how the relationship is going to move forward? These are not easy conversations. They're difficult because whenever our Jupiter is activated, which is what happens when anything transits sidereal Sagittarius or sidereal Pisces, whenever our natal Jupiter is activated by those transits, we are confronted with the stories that we believe about who we are and the way the world works. And one of the most challenging things about relationships is that our stories can be different. And we want to take the relationship and the person at face value, but we just can't. So how are you taking this opportunity to become aware of the stories that you bring to relationship? How are your stories prohibiting or allowing you to move forward in consensus in a way that maybe you haven't been able to do before? I think this is a great time to pull some tarot cards. The Afro Tarot by Jessi Jumanji. And so I'm shuffling here. The card on the bottom is going to be our context, our reference point. Let's pull a few cards here and see what the message, what the insight, the guidance is for us as we are moving into a new season and phase of relationships, as we are unpacking the stories we bring to connection, and as we are trying to move forward and maintain connection and community. The card we have on the bottom here is the Ten of Wands. The Ten of Wands. Oh man, that's a rough card. It is a card of heavy burdens. It is a card of weariness. It is a card of taking on more than you can handle. It is a card of just doing too much. But it's not always that we're choosing to do too much. Sometimes we've been picking up so many things along the way, especially in terms of how we relate to other people. And we turn around and look and realize that our bag has gotten so heavy and so full of things. And So I'm wondering if in this Ten of Wands, we might be realizing it's time to put some things down. It's time to put down some stories that you've been carrying. They've become too heavy for you. It's time for realizing that you've reached your emotional capacity for continuing to relate in ways that are exhausting you, that are replaying stories of abandonment or rejection. This is the time to confront the ways that you've been carrying things that you don't need anymore. The Ten of Wands is a promising card because it's an enough is enough kind of message in this card. So where have you had enough? Where are you ready to put down your wands? Where are you ready to put down your weapons, to put down your stories, to put down the coping strategies that you've been carrying with you to protect you? Do you need them? Do you need those weapons, those coping strategies, those defenses that you've been carrying with you so long? Do you need them anymore? Does the person in front of you require you to protect yourself? And if so, turn around and look at your bag and what do you have? What do you really need to protect yourself? And maybe you don't need to protect yourself. Maybe you can put some of these things down. The Ten of Wands is really a card of, at some point you got to stop. Are you ready to stop? No. Let's see what we've got here. We've got the King of Cups. This is a card of emotional maturity. This is a card of emotional wisdom and insight. It's often about being the adult and the bigger person and making decisions that may not satisfy your desires. They may not meet your needs, but it's a decision that has to be made. I feel like this reading is the most straightforward reading I've done in a while, especially in light of the fact that Venus is going to be retrograde soon. And this sign that Venus is in right now, it will be there till the end of February. So this is a really long story. And I feel like we've got some layers to peel off. We've got some emotional maturity to acquire. And as we acquire this emotional maturity, we just might see clearly the ways that we've been protecting ourselves from the connection that we've wanted all along. Often, with the Ten of Wands, it can feel like you have too many responsibilities and you have too many burdens and you don't have a choice to put them down. And understand that there absolutely was a time, and maybe it's now, but in the past, there was a time where you could not put these coping strategies down. This story that you believed about people and connecting with them was true. And the relationships that you were in just kept proving it correctly over and over and over again. And so you clinched that story really, really, really tightly and you held on to it. In every relationship that you move into, instead of seeing the person in front of you, you see the story that you've been carrying with you. The King of Cups. Kings are people that use, or being in a situation or circumstance that you have to use something and acquire more. So the King of Cups here is acquiring emotional stability, acquiring emotional security. What are the ways that you are seeking emotional stability and emotional security? What do you need to put down in order to have the emotional security and stability that you crave? Do you find yourself doing too much? Do you find yourself repeating patterns that you can't find yourself getting out of? You know, I can't help but to keep thinking about Erykah Badu's song Black Bag Lady, because really, like, that's really what's going on here. Friend, beloved, put the bag down. Actually turn around and see what's in it. And you might find that it was heavy because half the stuff that's in it wasn't even yours to begin with. Oftentimes, the stories that we tell about relationships are an inheritance we receive from our family, our mother, our parents, our caregivers. They are stories that were seeded in our infancy and seeded in our youth, where we were not conscious enough to really be like, okay, I realize that my mother is treating me this way, but I know everyone in life is not going to treat me this way. Or I realize that my father abandoned me, but not everybody is going to abandon me. I realize that I've been rejected by everyone in my family, but not everyone's like, come on, we don't do that. That's not how it works. It's so subconscious. And I think the drive to continue to add more weapons to our bag and to protect ourselves, I think that that's something that's really hard to stop. But I do know that when we come into these times where Venus is going to be retrograde, we have an opportunity to really examine our relationships. We have an opportunity to examine the fact that for most of us, we really want to be accepted. We really want to be received and welcomed and loved. And when Venus is retrograde, it gives us an opportunity to realize all of the things that are in the way of that. And so when Venus is in sidereal or Sagittarius, we're talking about stories. We're talking about belief. We're talking about convictions. We're talking about the stories we believe about who we are as people and how I'm just an independent person, or I don't need a lot of affection, or I require so much attention, no one's ever going to be able to give it to me. This is not necessarily something that is true. It may have been true in the past. Maybe people have sent you the message that you're too much, that you're too intense, that you're too needy. But do you need that story now? And is that a story that you actually want to believe about yourself? The King of Cups offers us the opportunity to have an emotional courage and bravery that maybe was not available to us before. Maybe this is the moment where you finally get enough emotional capacity to put down your weapons, to put down the things that you've been carrying with you to protect yourself. Maybe you don't need them. Maybe you do. Maybe you need some new weapons. Maybe you need some new coping strategies. Maybe you need something new in your bag to meet the challenges of relationships that you have now. But you can't put nothing in your bag right now when it's so full, right? You can't put anything in your bag right now when it's so full that there's no room for anything else. So talk to me. What's the story that you've been confronting about your relationships, and how are you reaching a new consensus about how to move forward in your relationships without those coping strategies? I hope that this new moon is bringing you the juicy goodness, revelations, and clarity that you need for your life. I know it's doing a whole lot of things for me, so much so that I'm like trying not to tell all my business in this video, but you know, that's just the way it is. My spiritual director always tells me that whatever message that I bring to people, best believe it's only going to be born out of the work that I'm doing with myself, or it's going to be something that's on the table for me soon, and that it's going to be something that I'm going to have to confront and deal with. I don't get to preach to you and not live it. I don't get to come on here and tell you nothing and not have to deal with and confront it myself. So I'm right here with you, looking at my bag, trying to figure out what do I need to put down, because this is tired, the bag is heavy, and I have had enough. And I will say, I do feel an emotional fortitude and tenacity that I don't really think that I've had before. And I know for me, a lot of it is connected to 2018. It's connected to what was happening then. So I want to hear from y'all. What is going on? This new moon is so juicy. Venus getting ready to enter that retrograde shadow is so juicy, and I want to know what's happening with you. Talk to me in the comments. Be sure to like this video if you like it. Be sure to share this video if you want somebody else to see it, and be sure to subscribe if you want to know when I'm going to bring you more of this divination for liberation. Again, I'm DaynaLN Knuckles, the People's Oracle, and I'll see you next time.